Right, okay, right, I've got my manifold all done off now, and I've modified my manifold, and now I've got to put it back together. Right, what I've done is, obviously I had 40 swirl flaps, so like the port flaps, so I've taken them out. I bought one of these flap delete kits which come with these little plugs. Now basically to fit these, they're not, the ones that I bought, they're not a straight pushing unit. So with these, what I've had to do is, these are 18mm, so I've had to drill the holes out and oversize the holes where the swirl flaps go, which are here. Now, and then the swirl flaps plugs go into the holes like that. Now normally what you do is you drill them and then you press them in. But unfortunately after I drilled these ones, there was not a lot of material left at the front face of the flange. So if I pressed them in, I could have distorted that. And also the other thing with these, they are quite common, when you push them in, you glue them in, as the manifold expands and the boost's in there, it pops them out. So what I've done is I've done my own little thing on it. I've oversized them so they fit in like so, and I'm going to glue them in with a sealant, like a sump gasket sealant, to seal them in. And then basically what I've done just behind, as you can see here, I've drilled another hole right behind the flap and tapped it with an M5 thread. And basically when that bolt goes in, it will go into the manifold like so, screw down, and then the head of the bolt, I'll get this right in, overlaps the plug like so and holds the plug down, so it pins it in, stops it from popping back out. So that way it clamps it in and then it will never come out again. So that's the best way. And then obviously you've got to get the set of like a couple of M5s to fit properly, but that's the way I've done it, and that will hold it in nice and tight and stop it from popping out. So now what I've got to do is I've got to now though rejoin these bits, these two bits of manifold. Basically after I drilled them all out, the bottom one as well, you have a hole going right the way through to the bottom. I just drilled that, and I didn't drill that out, I just literally tapped it with an M12 tap, and then literally this bolt literally goes straight in and bolts into the bottom and blocks the lower one, because that the little arm comes out the back and basically that attaches to the mech, which then turns them basically. Now getting the flaps out isn't too hard. When you take the manifold off and you look inside, the manifold's held on with basically two little torque drive screws basically. So you undo the screws and you just pop the flaps out, and out they come. The little arm on the back, just pull it off. It's got like a couple little lock lugs, so you just literally like pull it, pop it off, take that arm out, and then they all pull out basically. The only downside is basically the insides of the manifolds are filled with all this black goo which comes from the EGR basically, and all the oil being recirculated back into the engine. With this I put it through my part washer, washed it all away, and then I finished it off with some throttle body cleaner basically, and a carburetor cleaner. So you don't have to have a part washer, you can literally jet wash this off. So if you take it to your local jet wash, just jet wash it all off, get as much of the goo out as you can, then basically go get some manifold, like some carburetor cleaner, and basically this is stuff I use, non-fest. Like carburetor cleaner, and just wash it out with that basically. Works better than the other stuff. But so what we've got to do now is I've got to now glue these two bits of manifold together. So when you take this off, you'll have like a gasket joining the two together, which is like this. This is the bit of stuff, and all it is glue, like some gasket glue basically. Now I'm gluing them back together with this L-ring stuff, Durco, and that's what I'm using to glue the two bits together. And in the back part there's a recess which goes all the way round, and basically what you have to do is you have to fill this up and put a nice bead inside this recess, which just sits up a bit proud. And then basically when you clamp it together, it'll squash into the gap and then form a gasket and seal it together. So that's what we're going to do now. So got me sealant, then basically I've got my funnel All I'm going to do is get this up like so, then I'm just going to make a nice bead all the way around. So. Lock it together. So, goes on there. Now we get the bolts, torque drives, bolt it all back together. Right, there we go, all done, all glued back together, torqued up, taken the extra off, so cleaned all the joints up so it all looks nice and pretty, cleaned up inside the holes, taken the extra out, and then so that's all done, all bolted back together, ready to go back on. Now what I need to do now is I need to find another 3 of these little screws, and I need to cut them down slightly, and then I've got to install my plugs, which are here, which have got to go into my main portholes where the flaps were that I drilled out. They go in there, and then basically, as you can see there, that goes in, the little holes just behind, screws go in, pin the caps down, stop them from popping out. If you drill them right there as well, there is like all that type of material there to cut and basically drill through and cut a new thread into, and literally at the back there, just there. So you've got plenty of material. You can see basically, I'll show you that hole there, you can see how much material's there. So very good holding point, and when these bolt down, the heads just overlap the caps and pinch the caps in, stop the caps from popping back out. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to find myself some screws, cut them to length, and then when I come back, I'll show you putting them all in, gluing them in, putting the cap in the bottom. Right, next job. I've already got 3 of the main plugs in, as you can see. They're bolted in now. All good. All ready to rock. Now I've just got to do this last one. So what I do first of all, get a little bit of the sump sealant, blobbing my finger in there, and basically smear it round inside the hole. Because basically, as I push the plug in, it's going to push the sealant back on the plug. So I'm going to put a little bit in the hole. Let's say, ready for the plug. Get the plug, wipe the finger. So, get the plug. We're going to put a ring of sealant around this. So, plop, 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 plop. Spread it out. So, and then bottom it. So, the plug's now covered. So, I'm going to put the plug in now. A little spin and a twist as it goes down. Push it all the way down. Wipe the excess off from around the plug. Like so. Get our screw, which I've already cut down to length. Nice bit of Loctite on there. Loctite's getting a bit low. There we go. Bump it in there. Smear all around. Put the screw in. So, screw that down. Loctite will seal the thread. Put that right in. Meet the plug. Give it a little nip, like so. Wipe off the excess ooze that's come out. So, the plug's off. Nice and shiny still. So, and we're going to get a tiny bit more sealant, blob it on the finger, and inside we're going to look inside and basically smear it around inside the bottom of the plug. And then what we're going to do, we're going to wipe out the excess. So all that's left is a thin smear around the outside of the plug. Like so. Like that. Boom, boom, boom. That's that, that's that, that's that. There you go. And there you go. Done. It's all 4 installed. Bolt it down. So they're not going to pop out basically, as you can see. And all that's left is this final one here. So we're going to get the nut. Because of the coarseness of the thread and stuff, I'm just going to basically glue this in with a sump seal. So that. Down there. I would use Loctite, but I'm afraid it won't seal all the air voids. Pin screwdriver. Move that around inside there. Good bolt. Square. And it goes. See? Now, head off this nut. Nice. so we're going to just lock it off. So that will be completely airtight now and ready to be installed. Right, set the camera back up, go back to the installation.